Welcome to Crowded Market Report by Jason Shapiro. If you want more from Jason, subscribe to Crowded Market Report and get access to the CMR community, weekly reports, charts, and other exclusive content. Learn more at www.crowdedmarketreport.com or click on the link in the right corner.
What's gold going to do?
What's gold going to do? If you're going to ask me my opinion, I think it's going to go up. There's clearly a few arguments to that process. If they're going to end up having to get long here, I think I said this in the report. If the trend followers are going to start getting stopped the way they should be, then it's going up. I get out here in my process because I find that from here, my job is done. This is where trend followers take over, but also from here, I find that even if it goes up, it does so with much more volatility because as trend followers start to chase, and then it becomes a whole volatile freaking thing. That's my general idea on gold. I can clearly make the bullish argument of the world collapsing and people needing to get into gold and blah, blah, blah. I think I can also, as usual, make the bearish argument. If in fact the world is collapsing and these central banks are going broke, then maybe they need to sell their gold so that they can raise some freaking money, right? That's what happened in 2008. I knew quite a few people that were long gold in 2008 in anticipation of the collapse. And in particular, I remember this guy who was long these gold miners in Australia. And I mean, those things lost like 95% in 2008 because, arguably, and the same thing happened during COVID, by the way. Arguably, the gold miners in particularly, I don't think this is arguable, but the gold miners in particular need capital if they're going to mine gold, right? It's a capital intensive business. And if the banks ain't loaning, things like that, then they ain't going to have capital and they're just going to end up with a whole bunch of, land that they can't do shit about. So I remember that happening in COVID. I remember specifically because Brian Kelly, who was my old Dan Nathan, came out right as COVID was happening. He was like, look, you got to sell S&Ps here and you have to buy Bitcoin. He was supposed to be a Bitcoin guy. They used to call him the Bitcoin baller. You're supposed to buy Bitcoin, you're supposed to sell S&P, and you're supposed to buy the junior gold miner index. And he was totally right about the S&P. They went down like 30%. And I think Bitcoin went down like 60%. And I think the junior gold miner index went down like 80%. So it was another one of those things. He was right, but he got crushed. Right? And I think that's why that happened. Credit dries up. Gold miners ain't going to make money. So that's some more gold miners than gold. But, I guess that's my thought on that, whatever that's worth. But Dow COT is showing as long, but Nasdaq and S&P short. During these situations where you see conflicting signals, do you tend to just stay away, or would you look at news failure to the short side? The real way to do that, theoretically, is to be long the Dow, as the process says, and to be short whatever it is, the S&P most likely, as the process says. And then what happens is, if the market were to go down, you get stopped out of the gold long, and you'd be short the S&P, and then hopefully you get a news failure in the Dow, and then you can get sort of relong the Dow and have that on. That's kind of how the whole thing goes. I still am a big believer, just because I don't think I've ever seen it, that the Nasdaq and the more volatile stuff leads the market whichever way it's going to go. So I don't think it's a very healthy thing for people to be super long Dow and short the other shit, because that other shit's going to lead. It probably means that the Dow outperforms on the downside, but that's not even necessarily a COT thing. The Dow's going to outperform on the downside anyway, because the more volatile shit is what's going to go down the most. But, and I think I put in the report this week some numbers that would indicate, that the Dow number, while on our COT stuff is showing, yes, they are very short. It's such a small position relative to everything else. Just the buying across NASDAQ, S&P, and Russell this week was bigger than the entire Dow short, right? So if we're counting on the Dow the Dow speculator short position to save the market from going down, I think you're dreaming. I think we're dreaming. I forget the exact number, but it's like a $7 billion number that they're short, but I mean, the S&P itself is worth 35 trillion. So is that going to do anything? Should the market go down and should shit hit the fan? I can't see that being the answer. And listen, we know damn well, and we've talked about and we've witnessed that a lot of these COT trades don't work. The majority don't work. So, I mean, clearly the Dow could just not work just because they're super short. It could just not work and the market could go down. So, I think that's the answer to that. I hope that answers that.
Subscribe to Crowded Market Report by Jason Shapiro.